Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the SVT Time portion of Yamaha Guitar Development Open House. I hope everybody's enjoying this and getting a lot out of it. Dom, how you doing, pal?
I'm good, man. I'm good. You know, that intro, that's the longest I've heard that intro music. It's amazing. You were playing on that, right?
Yeah, that's me on upright and my good buddy Evan Goudreau on guitar. We recorded that years and years ago. But yeah,
really
that was a lot of fun.
Really fun.
Yeah.
Here we are. They keep letting us do this, Dino.
I know it. Eventually they're just going to say stop. So welcome, everyone. This, like I said, this is actually our second SVT Time live. As you guys saw in some of the previews, we have some exciting, like really cool SVT times coming up. Mostly on the 50th, and then with Bill Hughes, and those are for future episodes too. But this is live.
This is live. We kind of don't really have a script, which is really terrifying.
No, of course not, man. We're bass players. We don't need scripts.
We're bass players, and we got a Greek and Italian here, so there's no script. We're talking. We're fine.
Well, I will just say this: we will bring our guests on here in a second. We got some awesome guests coming up, and we're going to have all three of them on at the same time. We'll have Darryl Jones, Eva Gardner, and Jon Button. And you know, so make sure everybody has their questions ready. You know, we're going to talk primarily about the Heritage 50th anniversary SVT, because all three of them were pretty. There you go. Where's
yours is in the mail. It's in the mail.
Yeah, I'm sure. Anyways, yeah, they along with a bunch of other artists were very instrumental in the development of this. They came out to Calabasas when we were first talking about doing this Heritage project, and you know, who better to have involved in development of an amp, especially an SVT, than SVT users, SVT artists are out using this stuff every day. So I know you were in Calabasas with them. You guys wouldn't allow me in the building at the time.
No.
And this was pre-COVID.
No, this was truly, for me as a bassist and as a longtime Ampeg fan before Yamaha acquired the brand, it was just such an honor to be involved and be creative with so many amazing creatives that I looked up to for pretty much half my life, at least. And just, you know, like you're saying, SVT legends, if you will, people that are using this to the utmost ways that you can use this on stage professionally in front of thousands of people every night. So really, really cool to get their feedback and to get really like a history lesson of all the SVTs in the process. We went through the original 1969 SVT, through the 70s, through the 80s, like basically every era of SVT, to make sure that we were nailing the tone that we wanted. And basically we ended up with two different channels in the Heritage 50th Anniversary SVT, one voiced like the original 1969, and then channel 2 voiced like the mid-70s Magnavox. So two amazing SVTs in one, really a little bit more than that, because now, well, you've always been able to jump channels, but now you have two different voice channels that you're jumping. So definitely seemingly endless variations of tone there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, listen, without further ado, enough about us.
Yeah, let's get out of here.
Let's introduce the awesome Darryl Jones, the amazing Jon Button, and the ever talented Eva Gardner. How's that?
Yeah.
Hey guys.
Hey,
Hi.
Yeah, we can hear you just fine. Everybody's doing good.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Great.
Cool. Well, listen, I want to say thank you again for your time and your effort, not just on SVT Time here, but everything that you guys have put into this Heritage project. I can't thank you enough. And I know at some point we will make it up to you in the form of something very heavy with some tubes and some glass and some other stuff in it. So what's going on? I like Dom said, we don't have anything scripted here, so it's kind of like it's an Italian and a Greek, and you know, we're all bass players just talking about bass stuff. So let's start with you, Darryl. What have you been up to?
Let's see.
What haven't I been up to? It passed by in a flash. It didn't really. What have I been doing? Lots of. I've been actually, man, trying to learn more about health, and just trying to stay healthy is one of the main things that I've been kind of concerning myself with. In addition to that, I've got my Jones musical instruments project that I'm working on. Still trying to get that off the ground.
Yeah.
Things are moving forward in that respect, and playing a little bass from time to time, and other instruments. I actually seem to spend more time trying to play the guitar than I do the bass right now. But just trying to learn more about music, man. I've been taking this time to really try to educate myself harmonically, melodically, and rhythmically.
Right on.
Love that.
Cool. How about you, John? I know I've seen some of you were just doing a session recently too, I saw.
I've done a few sessions here and there, wearing a mask in a booth, separated from music. They've all different kinds of ways to try and make it happen in this weird time that we're in. But yeah, it's been fun to do a few things where you're actually playing with other musicians, for God's sakes. I mean, I do a fair amount of things at my house here. People email me stuff and I play on those, which is fun, but it is nice to actually go to a studio and play with other human beings. Sure. Because that's really what music's about, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I've been doing a fair bit of that stuff between a few sessions at studios and a fair bit of stuff here at my house, doing bass tracks. I spent a lot of time in the spring teaching my son first grade, and now we're about to dive back in, man. It's crazy. Like, there's no school, so it's like, here's the second grade teacher. Well, my wife as well, but man, that's a chunk of time right there. And then like what Darryl was saying, I've been working on practicing stuff, working on some new things. It's super nerdy, but I actually have been working on incorporating my third finger on the right hand instead of just two fingers, which is like, wow. I don't know why I decided that was awesome. A good idea.
There's no better time.
I used to play that way. I used to play with all three.
Really?
Yeah.
And then what?
And I actually I just got a Facebook question. Somebody from Facebook asked me about that. Like, talk about going into the weeds, man. This guy asked me, says, before 1991, you were playing with three fingers. Like,
wow, that's
so. Wait, Darryl, you stopped playing with three fingers. Is that right?
Yeah. Well,
so maybe this was a useless, a fool's errand on my part.
I'll tell you what happened was when I just started to look at my fingers and realized those two are almost the same length. So playing, just playing like that, it made sense to me.
That's what Nathan East does, right?
I don't know. I didn't know that he played with three fingers.
I've heard that. And I got to say, sorry to interrupt you, but that's what got me started doing the three finger thing, because I started doing that too. I was like, when I play with these, oh my God, we just went down a super nerdy rabbit hole.
Wow.
But anyway, I started doing these two fingers because it's like, wow, that works. Blah, blah, blah. I've been practicing that.
One thing that got me going, that was part of why I switched back to these two, is that I think I was talking to Miles, and he said physically or anatomically, these two fingers are the fastest. And
interesting.
So something about, that's a trumpet player, only thing a trumpet player would know. So,
right.
And there was a certain kind of evenness that I was looking for, but just playing with two fingers rather than three, because I just started doing it when I was practicing scales when I was a kid, where I would go, if two fingers on this side, I would play these two. Three, then I would play all three,
Whoa.
But then, another thing to move back into the area that you're going into, I just saw a film of Niels Henning Ørsted Pedersen playing acoustic bass, and he was playing with at least three fingers on this hand. So, there's something there,
Wow. All right. I'll let us back out of that rabbit hole. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, we just missed like the master of three finger and four finger. Billy was on earlier, and he's got that stuff down. But
boy, does he ever.
Yeah, let's start climbing back out of the rabbit hole here.
I'm sorry.
Eva, how's your right hand technique?
Yeah, I think you guys are onto something, because this isn't the first time I've had this conversation this week.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
It's in the ether. Like it's just kind of where we're at right now. We're all
Right.
So yeah, that's going to be on my list for sure. My technique list. Yeah, I've played around with it a little bit too, but it's got like a gallopy kind of feel.
Yeah,
which I like. But yeah. So anyway, I mean, one of the most like poignant quotes that just keeps coming into mind during this time is you can't control what happens, but you can control the way that you react to it. So that's just been something that I've just kept in mind during this whole time. And I mean, like Darryl, just taking the time to just focus on health, and that includes physically, mentally, emotionally, all the things that are coming along with this whole thing. And also just seeing this time as an opportunity to further educate myself, like you guys are. And I've just delved into the worlds of like music production. I'm taking some courses that just talk about engineering, recording. I use Logic, so just delving into just really the nuts and bolts of that program that I use anyway. I ended up recording a song that I'm going to release next week. So I have a single coming out that I recorded all by myself.
Love it.
Very cool.
So
cool.
Yeah, so it's been really fun. And again, like you, Jon, I've been doing session work just remotely from my own little space, and those are the good things about the technology where we're at right now, that we can access this and still be involved in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, really taking the time to just hone in and dig in deeper into some, like going back to school, you know?
Cool. Yeah, it's interesting because, like you say, you know, there are things during this time. There are things that inevitably have been taken away from us as performing musicians. So you use that time to better yourself, like I'm sure we're all doing. So that's all, that you take that time and you use it to your advantage, basically.
Yeah,
is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. When else do we get the whole world to shut down, for better or worse?
Right.
Yeah. So how do we use the time most effectively, right?
Yeah. Because exactly. Let me ask you this: what do you think the touring landscape is going to look like when things start opening up? I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily going to go back to the way they were right away. I'm sure it'll be a slow progression. What are your thoughts on that?
I got nothing.
I heard about a venue over in the UK, I think in Newcastle, that is taking what's normally like a 15,000 seater and making it 1,500 seats, but they're like building boxes into the floor, into the seating area. So I mean, that sounds like that's something. I don't know how far along that's come, but I think it seems like people are just. It's not going to go back to the way it was overnight. Like that's becoming apparent. So I think people are trying to figure out how to adapt. I mean, there's the drive-in concerts that are happening, but I'm not hearing about anything on the books until next year, next fall, really.
Yeah. Have any of you been to any drive-in concerts, or?
I haven't, and I'm curious just to see if there's any footage or anything like that. I did hear about one band in New York doing a drive-in theater gig, and the people got out of their car and rushed the stage.
Oh wow!
Of course.
That's actually the only thing I've heard about drive-in gigs.
Yeah,
I thought it was one of the first things that I thought about. I was like, wonder if you could just open up all those drive-in theaters and put it right there. So I mean, I applaud any innovative ideas to get things even just moving back in the in the right direction. And because I will say, Jon was just talking about doing sessions. I have not done a recording session in a studio since January, and so I miss playing with musicians. I really do.
Yeah. There's a venue here in New Hampshire that's doing drive-in. I'm going to say a small to medium-sized venue, but they've got a big parking lot with a porch. And that's what's happening now is you can drive in. It's like, I think they're charging like $75 a car, depending on the artist.
Mhm.
You can get out your lawn chairs, and as long as you stay in your parking spot, you know, they're pretty cool with it. But you know, it's something. You know, not just for the artist, but also for the
audience.
for the audience. You know, people are legitimately going crazy too, not being able to go out and see live music these days. So
I think one thing's for sure, once it gets back to normal or back to some semblance of what it was, I think live music will be more powerful than it's ever been, that we've ever experienced, maybe.
I agree.
Sweet.
I mean, just imagine people haven't seen a concert,
Yeah.
a live concert with other people in like a year and a half. It's like, that's going to be huge.
Something as simple as being able to go into the office and crank an 810 is like, the other day I was just playing like, oh my gosh, like once people hear anything loud, this is going to be incredible.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the let's talk about gear. Speaking about going down rabbit holes here. So you guys were all very instrumental in this Heritage 50th project that we've been working on for 2 years.
Since Dino and I met.
What's that?
Since Dino and I met.
Yeah, really, since Dom and I met. And I know, you know, given the circumstances of everything, you haven't actually had much time with the amplifier, you know, or being able to take it out on the road or tour with it. But do you recall when you first came out to Calabasas? And like I was joking with Dom earlier, they wouldn't let me in the building at that point. This was all pre-COVID too. They didn't trust me. So, but you guys sat down with Dom and Darryl. I don't think you were there for the initial visit, but you came out later for your photo shoot and everything.
Right.
Do you recall like that experience? What your first thoughts were?
What my first thoughts were for the
Yeah.
Not so much, man, because I think we were busy trying to get pictures that day, so we didn't really do a lot with the amp. You did make me think about my first SVT experience, which is another story we can get to at some point. But no, I don't have a lot for the. I think it's a really great idea. I mean, I love my Heritage B15, and so that you guys decided to take a few cool things from that and move over to the SVT, I think is a great idea.
Yeah. Well, while it's fresh on your mind, what was your first experience with your first SVT, Darryl?
I probably used a bunch of them, you know, rental gigs and stuff. But the first time I played through a really great Ampeg SVT was when I started playing with Miles. Mark Allison was the bass tech. He was like the everybody tech, actually, but he was, you know, a bass tech with the band, and he had an Ampeg SVT. I'm not sure from which year. I've heard guys talk about the saucer knobs, which are
okay.
Does that ring a bell to anybody?
Yeah, that was like I'm going to say early to mid 70s, I think, with the saucer knobs.
Okay, so I think that was the head, and he actually had replaced the 810s with hardkey speakers, and that was a rig that both Jocko and I used around New York because we would rent it from Mark to do gigs, and so we were, you know, both, and it was really a hell of a sound. In fact, the Decoy record, the Miles Davis Decoy record, there's some live material on the second. I'm talking about the second side of the album. But yeah, the tune, What It Is. There's this tune where it starts with a bass. I think the name of the song is What It Is, but that's that sound. It's the sound of that SVT.
Wow.
And I use that for the.
I love that record.
That was my first record. That's the first record that I played.
Wow. So that cabinet that had the hardkey speakers in it.
Yes.
That it's actually kind of a famous. It was like one of Hardkey's first.
Yeah, it was before Hardkey was doing cabinets. They weren't doing cabinets. They were just
doing speakers.
Speakers, yeah.
Wow.
So that's the same cabinet that Jocko used that you were using. It was the same A10 cab that was bouncing around New York City at the time.
That's right. Yeah, the whole amp, the whole rig. We were both, I'd go into 55 grand in New York, and he'd be playing it. And I'll never forget. My roommate at the time pulled up to the club. The 55 grand was one of those like shotgun clubs. It was just really long and kind of thin.
Yeah.
And she said that she walked in and she kind of pulled me to the side and she says, "Darryl, I heard the bass rig before I got out of the taxi. I'm using this rig every time I'm playing in New York. It costs more than I'm getting paid for the gig."
That's awesome. That's awesome. What a great story. What a great story. Eva, what were your first thoughts when you, I know we had like a bunch of SVTs lined up and ready to go.
Yeah, I just remember being so intriguing. I've never had the luxury of having being able to A/B an SVT like that or different heads before. And I remember just being so blown away by how different they all sounded and how each had their own character. I mean, you think, oh, it's an SVT, it's an amp, whatever, it's the same components, but they all had just such different characters. And I had such a blast playing through all of them because it was just something I'd never been able to do. Like how many SVTs you normally have in a room hanging out, especially especially vintage ones, so that was really, really special. I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah. And
the answer is as many as you can carry, which is typically one.
Yeah. Right.
As many as you can fit in your basement studio.
There you go.
And then Jon, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, similar to Eva. I mean, it was amazing to just sit there and hear the difference between them all. And they all sounded totally different. But also, I remember thinking yeah, they're all different, but they're all great. And well, Jon, which one do you like? I'm like, all of them. They're all different, but they're all awesome, and that was really interesting to me. And I would play one and go, oh, this would be great for that kind of thing. And then, oh, this one's good for that thing. And, they were all just killer and different.
Yeah. And I think that that whole approach was kind of what prompted us to say, well,
why choose?
Yeah. Well, exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. That's what I was kind of getting at. It's like, why can't we put, the 69 and the 70 in the same amp and just incorporate those two channels? And that's kind of where this whole thing came from. So,
good move.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's like I said, that's where we're at now. And like Darryl was saying, the Heritage B15 that we did back in 2010 was
right here. That's this one.
Yeah.
See,
yeah.
I think we did this the other night, didn't we, Eva?
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
So yeah, with that Heritage, you actually channel 1 is a 64 channel and channel 2 is a 66 channel. And they're two distinctly different sounding amplifiers, really. I usually say the 64 channel is the Jameson channel, and then the 66 channel is like the Carol K channel or the Joe Osborne channel. You get that real defined pick type sound versus that thumpy Motown sound. So that's kind of where we're at with it. And they are out shipping now. I know we've had limited shipments on the Heritage overseas, Australia, Europe, and now they're shipping in the States. So now we just got to get some live gigs back.
Yeah.
And exactly.
And play.
Exactly.
So bittersweet.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we got this great amplifier, but we're going to have to wait a little bit.
Well, I want to hear from Eva and Jon on their first SVT stories as well, their first. Remember
Eva.
their first SVT.
Yeah.
Ladies first.
So I grew up Ampeg was one of the first things. My dad was a bass player, and so our living room when I was little was the studio. So I was crawling around all this gear when I was little. One of my first memories is actually he had a B15, and one of my first memories is the A lighting up, and I was like, "Ooh, blue light!" And so that was just it's forever just burned into my brain. So Ampeg was always a household name for me. So growing up and starting to play bass, I only had that B15 really as a point of reference. And then I was, when I got to, I think I was probably about 18 or something, I was like, it's time I got my own Ampeg. So a friend of mine was selling his SVT rig, and I went from like B15 to 810 like overnight. And I just remember playing through that thing in his garage and just being like, whoa, this is like, it was just the most amazing, because I'd never played through anything like that before. Yeah. I was just playing like, clubs around LA and, high school dances and stuff. So, and I bought it from him, and I still have that rig, and it ended up being a 1970 head.
Okay.
So, so it's just this killer rig that I can't let go of. And the first time I played through one is the one I own. So.
And you still own that?
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's
awesome.
really cool.
Mm-hmm. It's not something I would let go of.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a family heirloom at this point.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Over to John. John, what's your
my Ampeg
story?
Well, so I grew up playing a lot of upright, and I also grew up using a lot of solid state amps, and I was playing a lot of jazz and pop and stuff, and I wasn't like the super tube amp guy for a long time. And I'll tell you when, so like I said, I was using some like hybrid tube solid state things. And when I got the Sheryl Crow gig, we were rehearsing with her, and I had auditioned on her SVT rig. And then when we started rehearsing, I brought my rig in from another company. And at this time I had an SVT, which I used for recording and stuff. I somehow was a little hesitant to use it on tours for some reason. And also, like I said, I was playing a lot of pop music and stuff, and some of these other amps were kind of good for that, for whatever. Yeah. So we start rehearsing with my rig, and the producer was like, let's switch back over to her SVT. And we do, and he was like, man, when you use the SVT, like it just glued the whole band together, and the whole band just sort of gelled, and it just all worked. And like I never looked back, and I've been using SVT ever since.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so
really cool.
I thought that was a pretty good SVT story.
Is there I've heard stories told about one of the main differences between the solid state thing and the tube thing is that the tube application follows the strength of your fingers a bit more.
Yeah.
Is that true? Is that true?
That's what I've understood the same. Yeah.
Solid state rigs kind of level out the dynamic of your hands, whereas tube amps tend to, you have a little bit more ability to play soft in one moment and then loud the next moment, and it's a little bit more. Yeah. You can tell a little bit more.
Yeah, I also find tube amps some people say they're slower, and like solid state amps have this like really quick zingy attack, which the slow kind of, it almost compresses, and it just kind of makes everything kind of groovy.
Yeah. And that's, I think that's why a lot of guitar players prefer tube amps over solid state amps, because they do react more to how you're playing, how hard you're playing, how soft you're playing. I notice especially like if you take an SVT and put it on a ported cabinet, where I don't want to get too deep into this rabbit hole, but basically because the cabinet is ported, the dampening factor that's going to the head is a lot slower. Mm-hmm. So picture that sitting in a big comfy sofa, and the whole thing just kind of surrounds you. It's kind of that same idea when you're playing an SVT through a.
I agree 100%.
It's like everything is just really squishy and hard to move around in, but it's just so comfortable. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Versus, you get this modern bench from, let's say, IKEA that doesn't have as much padding on it, and it suits the purpose, and it's really comfortable, but you can get up and down from it really quick because it doesn't suck you in.
That's great.
I hope
that's damn near poetic.
Leave it to the Greek to be poetic. But yeah, that's technically what I've always thought about tube amps. Is it's just when I play through an SVT, it's like sitting in this big comfy sofa, and like Jon said, you know, it's not louder. It just kind of envelops you better.
Yes.
Than some other amps do, some other solid state amps do. And those solid state amps also have their purpose too, for certain styles of music, of course. Agreed. But that's how I've always envisioned an SVT. It's like playing with a drummer that's got a huge pocket. It's like just like sitting in a big comfy sofa.
Yeah. You get that warmth, like
that warmth
from that too. Yeah, from the tubes.
So well, now, given that, you know, obviously, and, you know, the three of you have played on some of the world's biggest stages. No, I'm not, you know, I'm not trying to deny or puff you guys up or, you know, blow you guys up or anything, but
a little bit.
We need all we can get right now, right?
No,
that's what I'm saying. They're bassists. They want to, you know,
the three of you literally have like the three of the world's biggest gigs, and rightfully so. I mean, you guys are phenomenal in what you do, but we've also seen, and I think the last concert I did see was Eva with Pink. More and more artists and more productions are going to clean stages and not necessarily having amplifiers on the stage, or like I know, Jon, in your case, you know, with the 210 AVs and the smaller head and you know, volume on stage is a big issue now. I think, you know, for obvious reasons. I think Pete and they want the stage volume really low, but you know, how does that compare? Or I guess I'm trying to think of the right term here, but you know, in the old days, and I know Darryl, like with the Stones, that all bets are off, man. You guys have full backline. I'm sure it's loud on stage. But where do you see like live bass amplification going, where more and more artists and productions are going to clean stages, in-ears, and things like that?
Well, I use in-ears and a couple of big SVTs.
Okay.
Because I do like the in-ear thing. First of all, for me, it started out with protection. It was me really kind of trying to protect my ears. Band doesn't really play as loud as it did at that time.
Okay.
But I started out, and also because there's so many musicians on stage, I want to be able to hear guys on the other side of the stage. I want to be able to sing with Bernard and Sasha, you know, whoever's singing. And so the in-ear thing is great for that. And also for singing, it's amazing. I really love it. You know, when you sing, it's a lot more accurate, and I can use all the accuracy I can get. So I don't know what I would do about that. I don't know if I would, you know, if someone asked me not to have, you know, the bass rig behind me, I would definitely be trying to get it into the under the stage, and you know, with some grading so that I could, because I want to feel the bass.
Yeah.
You really think, man.
I've had it under the stage before.
Yeah, I think the bass is not just to be heard; it is to be felt.
Yeah,
absolutely.
For those of us who grew up in a house that had a basement, and your parents had parties, and the record player was down there, and one of the reasons that, you know, that I know James Jamerson so well is not because I sat down and listened to all those records, but because they were coming through the floor.
Yeah,
that frequency was moving through the floor. So for me, and it wasn't, I just put this together, you know, in the last 5 seconds, but I think that it's bass is visceral, man. It should be heard, but it should also be felt. And so I don't know how I would handle it. I think I still would have to have, and I've even had, I've had some guys talk to me about the little square thing that guys stand on.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak disparagingly about anybody who might happen to use that. But for me, dude, you don't got the right bass amp if you got to stand on something that vibrates. I mean, that's,
Yeah. I'm curious, Eva, how did it compare having the 810 behind you or underneath?
I wasn't getting, I mean, I would hear it, but I couldn't really feel it so much. And it really just depends on the show also and how big the stage is and where they decide to put it. So I definitely was missing the vibration, but to solve that problem, our monitor guy drilled butt kickers into the stage.
Nice.
So you're feeling what you're playing as well, because like Darryl was saying, it's like so much of it is vibration, right? So between hearing it in your ears and feeling it, you've got the whole experience.
Yeah.
So that helped for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, John, are you on in-ears as well?
I'm on in-ears right now.
You're on in-ears.
Same.
Actually.
Yeah. We are on in-ears with the Who. Everybody except Pete. Actually, Pete's on monitors.
Really? Okay.
And lately, like you say, I've been using a small rig because we've been doing playing with orchestra. That's the only reason.
That makes sense.
Because I've got literally second violins are 3 feet from me.
Wow.
Okay. So if I crank up an SVT, when they go, oh, let's have some more second violins, it's like bass,
Yeah.
So we've had to bring everything way down, which is a different thing. But when I started with them, I had a SVT and a guitar amp, just like,
yeah.
And that was very fun. But I've done the gamut. I mean, I've toured with Shakira for a long time, and that was 0 amp. I mean, I literally had a Sans amp and in-ears.
Yeah.
That was it. And then I played with a French pop singer, and I had a SVT into like a speaker emulator under the stage and in-ears, and that was cool. You kind of gotta roll with what when you're a hired gun. You kind of gotta do what you gotta do. But I also find depending on the PA and the size of the, and also every venue sounds different, but sometimes you get a lot of low end off the back of the PA, depending on the way they have that set up. Yeah.
Sure. Sure.
But I'm pretty comfortable doing, but in a perfect world, if I have my druthers, it's an 810 behind me and in-ears, both.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's
like Darryl.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah. But like you guys say, at the end of the day, you got to do what the boss says too. Whoever that boss may be. So, we actually got a question come in, and this is actually from one of our Ampeg artists, Todd Michael Bowers, who's a Chicago cat. And this is for Darryl. He's saying, Darryl, I was at your first hometown shows with the Stones. What was it like taking the stage at Soldier Field that first night?
That was really great, because all the bands that I played with up until I played that gig at Soldier Field in Chicago. It's Soldier Field. I just found out about 2 years ago, not Soldiers Field, which is what I called it for all those years before that. My mother took me and my brother and a few people in the neighborhood to see James Brown at Soldier Field.
Wow.
And so, and like I say, Sting and Madonna, all of these bands that I played with in Chicago before, none of them played in town. They would always be like a gig out in, Ravinia or someplace outside of, the city. So when they said we're going to play in Chicago, I was like, oh, great. Where are we playing? And they said Soldier Field. I was like, yes. That just, first of all, just because it's like the South Side of Chicago. It's not South, but it's considered where I grew up on the South Side of Chicago. It's a venue that you pass by anytime you drive down the lake. And so just on the level of that, it was really, really special to me. And I think mostly that, and just that it was real hometown, not far from where I grew up. you know, and very close to my stomping ground where I played around town and stuff like that. So it was just really, really special. I love playing that place. We played, I think the second or third time we played there, it was freezing and everybody was complaining, and I was just happy. I was just like, yeah, it's outside of Chicago. That's how fun it is, you know.
That's
hey,
awesome.
Darryl, I have a story for you.
Mm.
So before you had that gig, so Dad and Ron Wood were in their first band together. They grew up in the same neighborhood. So there were a couple bands. My dad opened up for the Stones in 1967 with The Creation. So fast forward, Bill Wyman leaves. They're looking for a bass player. So Bobby Womack calls the house, because they were friends, calls my dad and says, hey, Kimmy, guess what? There's an opening in the Stones. Call Woody and see what's going on. And I don't know, obviously nothing happened or whatever, but it was like, who's going to get that gig? Is it going to be my dad? Is it going to be, who is it? Who's it going to be? And then we went to go see you right when you joined in LA, which was awesome. But we saw the guys, but I was like, for a second, it was like, ooh, maybe Dad's going to be bandmates again with his old buddies.
That's amazing. I didn't know that. That's
How many other people can say Bobby Womack called the house?
We used to hang out. I remember hanging out with like his kids and stuff when I was little. I didn't know. I was like, oh, Bobby and Regina, who was his lady at the time. But you know, I didn't know who any of these. When you're little, they're just, you know, your dad's kooky friends.
Oh,
man.
That's great.
I love hearing that.
And then later on, I'm like, oh my God, the guy playing guitar in my living room was Mick Taylor? What?
That's so cool.
Imagine, yeah. Well, you know, the guy that played guitar in my living room was my uncle Hero. And it wasn't guitar, it was actually bouzouki. So
that's awesome. I have a similar question for Eva and John. Like, what is, I guess, the most memorable gig that comes to mind over the years?
The one that pops up just for me, just because it was so recent, was playing Wembley Stadium this time last year. I mean, that was on my bucket list forever, and getting to be on that stage 2 nights in a row in London, kind of where it all started for me with my family, and that was just an epic. Like, that was it, man. Yeah, it was really
Incredible.
special.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, Darryl, when you're talking about a hometown show, it's interesting for me because I grew up in Fairbanks, Alaska.
That's deep. I didn't know that, man. That's it.
And nobody goes up there. I've never had a hometown show.
Oh wow!
Man.
Sheryl Crow on her schedule, it popped up for a second, like Fairbanks, Alaska. I was like, no way, and then it went away. I mean, it just makes no sense to, like, the cost of getting a tour up there compared to playing for the 4 people that live there. No offense to all my friends in Alaska, but I mean, it doesn't make any sense. But I mean, I've lived in LA for a long time. So just recently, last year, The Who played Hollywood Bowl. And that was, I mean, it was such a historic venue, and, you know, all my friends are there, and that was huge. For sure.
That's incredible. Those are all bucket listers for sure.
yeah, really. Now,
But
John,
now I feel like I want to add Fairbanks, Alaska on there just because nobody does it.
there you go.
I think that should be everybody's bucket list now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, John, and this last Who tour, you were playing in front of a full orchestra as well. So that's going to be an experience in and of itself. Just, you know, having an orchestra behind you.
Yeah, it's different. I mean, especially with The Who, because the Who can be such a sort of fly by the seat of your pants, like never know what's going to happen kind of band, and then suddenly we got an orchestra with a score, and it's like, okay, we got to stay on, you know. So that was a interesting dynamic to sort of navigate, of like, you know, we can't just improvise everything.
Yeah.
You know.
Now, at one point, you did the whole Tommy show, correct?
Yeah.
Like start to finish, and
well, I did it with. So I played with Roger Daltrey, his solo tour stuff, without Pete as well. I've been doing that for years, and we did that with Roger as well. And that was interesting doing it with Roger, because we would do Tommy start to finish, and then we'd launch into another, hour and a half of Who songs. It was like, man, it was because the Tommy, there was no stops. It was just like an hour of solid music nonstop. Like you barely got a drink of water. But yeah, it's an amazing experience to play that whole thing. It's like playing a symphony or something, It's like such a through composed, amazing work, the whole thing,
Sure. A rock opera, basically.
Yeah.
The
first one, apparently.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I played Pinball Wizard at my 8th grade graduation luncheon. Pinball Wizard. Just
awesome.
That's so good.
I love it.
Well, I know we're kind of winding down on time here, so I want to give you guys a chance to, plug what you're working on. I know Eva says she's got a single coming out next week. Obviously, we'll be sharing that across all Ampeg social as well. Eva, is there anything else that you wanna throw out there, or?
No, I mean, I'm just excited to be part of, this, you guys, the Ampeg family, and thanks for the support over all these years, and looking forward to continuing on through whatever this is that we're in right now. But we're doing what we could do, and so just thank you. Thanks for having me on board.
Oh, thank you. Thank
you.
Yeah. John, how about you?
Well, we've got arithmetic, second grade arithmetic coming up next week. We'll see how that goes.
And then we're going to learn the 3-finger approach for the.
Yeah, we got 3 fingers. There's various. It sounds weird, but sometimes it's hard to keep up with all the. You play on a session 6 months ago, and then it comes out, and it's hard to keep track of it all. Yeah. I don't have anything personal. I'm not like Mr. Solo bass project or any of that. So. Just things I played on that are popping out. I actually did a really fun session with these guys that call themselves Scary Pockets. It's sort of a collective of LA session guys that get guest singers and stuff. And I have a couple of those coming out that'll be on YouTube and stuff in a couple of weeks. And those are really cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
Keep us posted so we can share that.
Yeah, that's some great stuff. Matt plays in that with you, right? Matt Musty?
Sometimes, yeah. We didn't do it at the same time. It's a rotating cast of characters.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
Cool.
That's
cool.
it.
Darryl, how about yourself, sir? Other than your 3-finger right hand technique.
Well, I guess I'm going to use this my time to do a little bit of shameless work generation. I'm available for remote sessions. I would love to be working a little bit more, just even if I'm, recording here at the house. So I'm available to do that kind of stuff. I'm excited about my guitar project, my bass company thing. I think, I grew, fell in love with Fender instruments, and I'm just taking a riff on what Leo Fender got so right. And so yeah. I would love, when I have enough instruments, I would love to have you guys check them out and, see what you think and let me know how I can do it better. So that's something that in the fall, I'm hoping to, to have a little bit more off the ground. And
that's cool.
And I really want to do a lot of, want to let people know about it as soon as I'm able to really supply some folks and instruments.
And Darryl, you're making guitars and basses, right? Yes, I am. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Cool.
I will say this: when you brought your bass out to Calabasas for the photo shoot, it is an amazing sounding instrument. Like it's got that old school Fender thump to it, if you will. It's really a cool bass. It's just a great bass. I can't. I'm mainly saying that for Eva and John too. If you guys haven't checked one out.
Well, what pickups? What are you doing for pickups?
I have been using Lindy Fralin pickups on a lot of the things, but different. Since it's I'm kind of looking at the kind of a kind of base model. But for folks like you, whatever you want to do, if you have pickups that you love, then we're ready to work with you on that. One of the things, the radius, front of the neck radius, is something that I'm very, very sensitive to. I didn't realize it. I was just kind of trying to figure out, well, why does that instrument feel so much more at home to me than some of the newer stuff? And I realized I grew up playing Fenders with a little bit more, you know, circular radius. And so I'm really taking a page from that, you know. And a lot of time, one of the things we found out with the Lakeland bass was guys would pick it up and play it and go, wow, man, this feels at home to me. I feel at home on this. And I think it's because part of it's because of that radius thing. You know? Wow. So, but it's a flatter radius, more modern thing than
like the C neck, is it the C?
Yeah, well, I'm thinking about even the front of the neck. I mean, the 7 1/4 radius, you know, and we might not end up going, you know, quite that curved with everything, but a little bit more than a lot of the instruments now. The radius is 10 and 12 and sometimes 14, so it's much flatter.
Yeah.
And since not a lot of bass players are stretching strings and stuff, I just always wondered, well, why would that need to be the case? And for me, I kind of prefer a little bit more curved front of the neck. The back of the neck is just basic C. Yeah, you know, basic C. But again, you know, we're really excited to work with people on building them an instrument that is specific to them and that they're going to fall in love with.
Sweet.
Cool. I'll also attest to listening to Darryl play, which it's completely unfair to say because he could be playing a, you know,
I was just gonna say,
it would sound great. But
exactly.
silky and smooth were the two words that came to mind when he was playing through that 810. It sounded amazing. Yeah.
Silky. Did you just say silky smooth?
I said silky and smooth.
Silky and smooth. That is perfect.
That's all you need for any of your advertisements. Just
right. Exactly.
Taglines by Dom.
Yeah. That's what I'm doing during COVID.
I was going to say.
Ampeg that we should know about?
What's that, Darryl?
Is there anything new from Ampeg that we should know about?
You know, we've got, and it's funny because people, you know, when I talk to my friends and, hey, you busy? Or, you know, what's going on in Ampeg? It's like, we've been extremely busy.
We've been exhausted busy.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, you know, and I'll let Dom attest to this a little bit more too, but, you know, we're planning for stuff 2, 3, 5 years down the road that we're working on now.
I see.
So there is a lot of stuff coming down. Unfortunately, if I talk about it, Dom will have to kill me.
Yeah, the broadcast will just end quickly. But no, we have the Heritage 50th Anniversary SVT. We have the Heritage SVT 810 AV, so the 810 cab that matches that, all American made. We actually just recently came out with a bunch of merch, t-shirts, hats. I think hats back there, mugs. Just trying to start the bigger branding picture and clothing line part of it. We know that, you know, this brand has such a legacy and it hasn't really been fully tapped into. So like Dino said, we really, honestly, we have like a 7-year roadmap with everything. And, you know, COVID slowed down. Well, in some ways it slowed down development. In some ways it's actually everyone's very laser focused right now, but definitely within the next year, as well as 2 years, we're going to have a lot out. So that's all I can say right now, but I'm ridiculously excited about it, but I'm also ridiculously biased about everything. So
we all are.
Yeah.
Excited about
of course.
But yeah, at some point, you know, and I've said this before too, it's like, you know, and this is why I asked the question about clean stages and things like that, because, you know, Ampeg has always been an innovator for bass.
Mm-hmm.
And like back in the 60s, the SVT was a complete innovation. Nobody thought of doing a 300-watt all-tube head with little 10-inch speakers. But, you know, obviously, given the times and the environment of live performances these days, we as a bass amp company have to change to some degree, where not only are we just offering bass amps, but we got to start offering bass solutions to performing artists. And whatever that may be, you know, I mean, Dom and I joke about, you know, concepts all the time, and I won't get into like what some of our concepts are, but
come on, I gotta say the one.
Go ahead, say it.
Wait, I gotta publicly like NDA this or something. So it's called Thunderwear. In the tagline was, "It puts the thunder down under," and it was just like, come on, that's amazing.
You gotta do that. Come on.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're going to end it at that.
Yeah.
Right.
Listen, guys, I cannot thank you enough for coming on and
Thank you.
and just giving us your time. Not just here, but like Eva said, when I say Ampeg family, I truly mean family. You guys, not just with Ampeg, but we're all bass players. There's a lot of camaraderie between us. I love you guys very much. I can't, I can't wait for the days that we can get together at a show or at NAMM or whatever and just kind of do a group picture and a group hug again. So
Likewise.
again, for myself and everybody at Ampeg, and I'm sure everybody that's been watching, thank you so much. Stay healthy, stay safe, and we will see you real soon. Definitely.
Yeah.
That's good.
From here, I'm going to hand. What's that? One last question.
SVT BBQ.
SVT.
I love it.
I like it.
Yeah.
SVT barbecue.
Yeah. We'll do that. We will do that.
That's way more fun than tea time.
Exactly.
Food involved. That's way more fun.
Bring in the thunder.
That's right. I'll have my thunderwear on. We'll be ready to go.
Yes.
Barbecue. Oh,
Right with them.
we gotta get. Listen, I'm gonna hand it back to Pat. Pat's gonna take it from there, guys. Thank
Thank
you.
you, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Nice to see everybody.
Great to see you.
Bye.
Thank you.